The first time Lyra met him, she was too young to even understand what her own feelings meant. She remembered the day clearly. Dusty suns above, alien winds sweeping across the trading outpost on the edge of nowhere. She was barely 16 cycles then, which in human years made her, well, younger than she cared to admit now. He had been there as part of a convoy, unloading supplies and fixing one of the battered star haulers that limped in from the outer colonies. The humans were rare visitors here. Most came through, did their job, and left again. But this one stayed long enough for her to notice everything about him. His name was Kale. He was older, maybe late 20s, broad-shouldered, with a tired but kind face. There was something about the way he carried himself, calm, steady, like the storms and chaos of the galaxy never touched him. To a young girl who had known only turbulence her whole life, he seemed like solid ground. She didn't just like him. She fell hard and fast, the way young hearts do. She lingered near his repair bay, bringing excuses, a bottle of water, a replacement tool he hadn't asked for, questions about Earth she didn't really care about the answers to. He was always polite, always gentle. And then one evening, under the glow of the docking lights, she blurted it out. "I like you," she said, words trembling, cheeks burning a faint silver, the way her species flushed when embarrassed. I want to stay with you." Cale had looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he sighed softly and crouched, so his eyes were level with hers. "Lyra," he said kindly, "you're too young. The galaxy's huge. Go live first. Grow up. If you still feel this way when you're older, come back and tell me then." At the time, it felt like rejection. It stung, sharp and hot, and she hated the tears that welled up. But even through the hurt, something about the way he said it, serious, not mocking, planted itself deep inside her. Come back when you're older. She carried those words like a promise. Hashtag years passed. The galaxy moved on, as it always did. Lyra left the outpost soon after, following trade ships, studying at far-off stations, learning languages and customs beyond her own. She grew taller, stronger, her awkwardness giving way to confidence. Her people were scattered across the stars, but she carved a place for herself anyway, trading goods, negotiating contracts, exploring corners of space most humans never saw. And through it all, she thought of him, not every day, not always sharply, but like the echo of a song you can't quite forget. She wondered sometimes if he even remembered her, a silver-cheeked alien girl with clumsy words and too big feelings. Maybe he'd forgotten the moment as soon as it passed. Maybe he had someone now. Maybe he'd left the outer colonies altogether. But the promise burned steady. When I'm older. So she waited. Hashtag the return. It was nearly a decade later when she found herself back on the same dusty outpost. Older now, 26 cycles, a woman grown. The place hadn't changed much. The docking bays still rattled when ships came in too fast. The air still smelled of metal and ozone. And there, near the same repair bay where it all began, was him. Kale. He looked older, too. A few more lines at the corners of his eyes. A little more gray at his temples. But still steady, still solid, still unmistakably him. For a long moment, she just watched from a distance, heart-hammering. Then, gathering every shred of courage the years had given her, she crossed the docking bay. He turned at the sound of her footsteps. His eyes widened slightly. Lyra? So he did remember. "Hey, Kale," she said, smiling softly. "It's been a while." He blinked at her like he wasn't quite sure what he was seeing. She couldn't blame him. She wasn't a shy girl with trembling words anymore. She stood tall now, confident, the silver flush on her cheeks replaced by the calm composure of someone who had lived and seen things. You've changed," he said finally. She tilted her head, the corner of her mouth curving. "You told me to come back when I was older. So," she spread her hand slightly, "I did." Hashtag old feelings, new hearts. They ended up talking late into the night in the same small diner where visiting crews grabbed food before long hauls. She told him about the places she'd been, the ice markets of Orin 3, the floating cities above Nearest, the crimson deserts where twin suns burned the sky. He listened, genuinely curious, asking questions, smiling at her stories. He told her about his work, how he'd stayed mostly around the colonies, repairing ships, sometimes piloting cargo runs when the money was good. It felt easy, natural, like no time had passed at all. But under the words, under the laughter, something unspoken hummed between them. At one point, when the conversation lulled, she leaned back and met his eyes steadily. "Cale," she said softly, "do you remember what you told me?" "That I was too young." He hesitated. "Yeah, I remember." "Well," she said, her voice calm but her heart pounding, "I'm not too young anymore." For a moment, he didn't reply. His gaze searched hers, as if trying to see the girl she had been and the woman she had become at the same time. Then he exhaled slowly. "No," he said finally, "you're not." Hashtag the wait of time. The days that followed were quiet but full. Cale showed her the changes in the colony. Introduced her to old friends who remember the silver-cheeked teenager trailing after the human mechanic years ago. Lyra laughed at the stories, at her own younger self, at how obvious she must have been. But when she and Cale were alone, things felt different now. The easy smiles lingered longer. Their hands brushed sometimes when they walked side by side. There was a warmth in his gaze now, one that hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had, and she had been too young to see it. One evening, standing on the edge of the landing platforms watching the sunset, she asked quietly, "Did you ever think about me after I left?" He was silent for a long moment. Then, more than I expected to, her throat tightened. "I didn't want to wait forever," he admitted. "Didn't even know if you'd come back. But some part of me hoped you would." Hashtag the promise kept. The night before she was set to leave again, because neither of them belonged only to this outpost anymore, he found her where she sat watching the stars. "I was afraid," he said simply, sitting beside her. "Of what?" "That I was too old now. That you'd come back and realize I wasn't what you wanted anymore." She turned to him, eyes shining faintly in the starlight. "Cale," she said softly, "I didn't cross half the galaxy just to change my mind." Something in his expression broke then, all the careful restraint slipping away. Slowly, like he was afraid she might vanish if he moved too fast, he reached for her hand. She laced her fingers through his. It felt like closing a circle that had waited years to be complete. Hashtag epilogue. When she left the next morning, it wasn't alone. Cale packed his things, locked up the repair bay for the last time, and walked up the ramp of her ship like he had been waiting to do it for years. The colony shrank behind them as they lifted off, suns rising over metal and dust. Neither of them looked back. After all, the promise had been kept, and the galaxy was waiting.